Hello and welcome again. This is Charles Kelly from Money Tips. I hope you're all well today. Today I saw a story on the BBC that student loans have been overpaid by 28 million. This means that people have allowed the student loan company to debit their account for more than they owe. And the amount apparently runs to 28 million, and that's only the ones they've found. And it's another example really of people not keeping an eye on what's going in and out of their accounts. Now, I talk about this in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, and I talk about the stars that lost it all, the people that actually lost hundreds of millions of pounds by not keeping an eye on things like what they're earning, what's going out, what's coming in, who's looking after your money. Now, I know that when you are earning millions, you can probably have accountants and lawyers and financial people and agents and managers to look after things. But by not keeping an eye on things, big names, look at Tyson, look at 300 million, look at the actors like Nicolas Cage, and many others that I do go through in the book. Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. Even bands like Blondie were completely ripped off by the manager. They were virtually broke after all their success in the 80s. The Rolling Stones, the Beatles lost, probably hundreds of millions in money. Elvis Presley with his Colonel Parker. When he died, he was down to probably his last million. John Lennon, when he died, was down to his last million. And actually it was their wives, Yoko Ono for John Lennon and Priscilla for Elvis, that built up the estate again. And Priscilla's turned it into Graceland, into quite a big business now with millions of visitors, a hotel. I mean, she's done amazing. And Yoko Ono has managed the money that John Lennon left to build up his fortune again. So it's easy to let things slip by. And the message is, don't let the grass grow under your feet. In other words, if you don't keep the grass trimmed, it will just grow under your feet. Another expression that Jim Rohn used to use is, don't let the weeds take the garden. You've got to keep tending that garden or the weeds will take the garden. So you've got to watch that as well. And a grass is like a weed. If you don't keep it cut, you don't keep it tended, it will just grow and grow, and eventually it will outgrow the whole garden and probably take over your whole house. In fact, if you leave a house derelict for long enough, the plants and the weeds literally cover the house. I've dealt with in the council who had to repossess a property because the owner wouldn't keep it. And the owner was an old man and we just inherited it, and they wouldn't look after it. So the council had to move in, and because it was becoming an eyesore, a health hazard, the council had to compulsorily purchase the house, then clean it up and then sell it. So, you've got to keep on top of things. And the student loan thing is just another example of that, that if you're not looking at what's coming into your account on your bank statement or on a spreadsheet, or, just by keeping an eye on it, through whatever means you have to do, you've got to keep an eye on it. Now, one thing that might help you is a card I use, which a lot of young people like. It's the Monzo card. It's quite a nice little pinky, don't know what colour that is, magenta, whatever it is. And they're quite good because they've got a very good app. It's very simple to use. You go on it, you're into it. You don't have to put in 20 passwords. And whenever you spend money, it tells you, a little sign comes up on your phone, and there's a little ching sign and sound comes up, and then a sign comes up saying, Starbucks has taken £2.50 for your coffee just now. Or if there's a direct debit going out, it tells you that the money's just gone out, which is good because I had ClickFunnels overcharging me, and it told me that they were, that the money was going out. I said, well, that doesn't look right, So that's why I think Monzo is good, because it's real time. Immediately the money goes out, they tell you what's going on, and it's quite easy to sort of look on the app and see exactly what you spent today and all that. So it tells you how much you've spent today. So if you can't do it manually by looking at your bank statement online or even just going to the bank, then do it by using something like a Monzo card. And I just want to remind you that for the PPI, this is in the UK, PPI claims, payment protection insurance claims, I think the deadline is this month. So if you have got you even think you might have a PPI claim, I suggest you get onto one of the companies or get onto the banks that you had accounts with, or the credit cards that you had accounts with, because this will be your last chance. Otherwise you'll have to go through the courts to claim your money back. So that's the message today, is to don't let the grass grow under your feet. Now, I wanted to mention the word of the day, the financial word of the day, which is tenure. Tenure, Tenure. Tenure can mean term of office. It's tenure in office. The presidential's tenure in office. But in financial terms, it means, and I'm going to give you the exact word in here. In financial terms, it means the condition under which land or buildings are held or occupied. And examples of tenure in the UK might be freehold or leasehold. Freehold being that you own the land and on which the building is built, and leasehold meaning that you don't own the land, that's owned by a freeholder, or sometimes called a landlord, strangely enough, and you're buying a long lease to live in that property, or it could be a short lease. That's why generally people prefer freeholds, but in terms of like blocks of flats, they're generally in this country sold on a leasehold basis, because there are problems if everybody has a freehold in the flat. But it can be a very long lease. It can be like a 999-year lease. So that block won't even last that long. So, but I've always preferred freehold because it's much simpler. You own the land, you own the property. You don't have a landlord or a freeholder breathing down your neck, or threatening to repossess your property if you don't pay your ground rent. Yes, that can happen. Or saying that we are going to spend £50,000 painting the outside of the building when it only cost £10,000. So leaseholds, I've written an article about this. Leaseholds are a legal minefield. So I've written articles about that, because I think you've got to be very, very careful. So that's the word of the day, tenure, which means the condition under which you're buying the property. What's the tenure? Well, you say, well, is it freehold or is it leasehold? There might be a few other obscure ones, but those are the main two. And generally, if you're buying flats, it's leasehold. Then that means you've got to pay what's called a ground rent, a rent for the ground that you have. It sort of goes back to almost feudal times and the landed gentry, where they kind of owned everything and they would give you leaseholds. A lot of the properties owned by the Duke of Westminster and the Earl of Cadogan in London are in fact leaseholds. You can't generally buy a property in Belgravia that's on the land owned by the Duke of Westminster, one family that owned about £10 billion worth of property. They're all leaseholds. So eventually that lease, you buy something for a 99-year lease, in 99 years it comes back to the freeholder, unless you extend the lease. Obviously you can extend the lease, but that will cost money. They would charge a premium for that. So that's why I always prefer freeholds. But sure, if you're buying an apartment, I've had to buy leaseholds in the past. But leasehold, you've got to really read the leases. You've got to check on the ground rent. Sometimes they're charging silly ground rents. Ground rents used to be like £10 a year, £25 a year, £50 a year. Now some of these new developments, they're charging £200 a year, and it rises every 5 years. They never used to rise for like 50 years. Now it's becoming, to be honest, a bit of a rip-off. And some of the service charges are also a rip-off. If you get the wrong management company in there, they can not only do a bad job, but they can charge you a lot of money to do a bad job or no job at all in managing the property. So it's very important when you buy a flat that you check out who's managing it. Is it self-managed? Is it managed by a right to manage agreement, but by the leaseholders in the block, which is usually a good thing? Or is it managed by some huge management company that manage, or so-called manage, or own thousands and thousands of freeholds, but do nothing to help the leaseholders? In fact, if anything, they're working against the leaseholders. So I don't like the leasehold system, as you can probably gather. But that's just my financial word. I've really given you three there: tenure, the condition on which it's held; freehold, a type of tenure; or leasehold, another type of tenure. Okay, so that's all for now. As I said, don't let the grass grow under your feet. Keep on top of your financial situation, because you don't want to be like the stars who lost it all that I mentioned in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, which you can get on Amazon, by the way. That's the message. Don't keep on top of things. Keep on top of things. Otherwise, your money will be taken. And when does it end? It never ends, right? It never ends. I was listening to a tape by David Goggins, his audio book, and he said, keeping on top of things, keeping fit, keeping keeping going never ends, right? And it's true. Even when you're old and you're retired, you've still got to keep on top of things because you own property then. And you've got people knocking on your door trying to rip you off. You've got people calling you up saying, oh, there's been a message on your bank and you have to press this button and press that button, give me your passwords and that sort of thing. People are always trying to take your lunch. They're always at it. They're always trying to rip you off. So just be careful. It never ends, right? Just like in the jungle, the lion, the head of the pack, the herd, or the whatever you call a pride of lions, the head lion, the head honcho, the king of the jungle doesn't just sit back and say, right, I'm the king of the jungle now, I can relax. No, because there's younger lions trying to take his throne. There's hyenas trying to eat his cubs or take their food away. So it's just like the jungle. It doesn't really end. And you've got to really stay on top of it, really for the rest of your life. But that keeps your mind active. It's a good thing in a way because it keeps you going. It means you don't just fall asleep. If you fall asleep, that's the end of it. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks very much. This is Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money.